Do you remember what that was like?
Yes.
What did you want to do at the end of the day?
Go home.
And do what?
Not work.
Not think about work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's human.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, and today is going to be a great day because we have with us Celia Arias, who is a business growth expert. And she reverse engineers your business growth by focusing on strategy and operations.
That's right.
I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me into your mobile podcast office.
This is the mobile version of the Business of Happiness podcast. Welcome to all of you as well, because we are on the road and we are finding incredible people like Celia, who I'm so honored to have you join me. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be here. I'm sad the sign isn't here.
I know.
Your big, bright, happy sign. But other than that, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that my audience knows, I have been following you for quite some time now. I am so honored, Celia. And I actually met Celia at a phenomenal workshop and certification program that we both are certified in. And you have been working with some really big businesses and small businesses. And that's really where your expertise lies, is with entrepreneurs who are kind of finding themselves either stuck or plateauing, and how to kind of launch their business into higher success.
Yeah. I say that I work with businesses that have typically been in business so that they have ideally product market fit. So that means they've have proof of concept, they've proven their product, they've sold it to people, right? The engine is moving, and now they are either stuck because they're overwhelmed, maxed out, exhausted, don't have systems and automations in place, or their revenue has plateaued and they can't really figure out why. So all of those things are frustrating, and I come undo the frustrations.
I love it.
Basically.
I love it. I think you are speaking to my audience for sure, because
okay.
This seems to be something that so many of us in the healthcare profession, in dentistry specifically, are finding our greatest challenges are with operations, definitely, but maybe we don't realize it's operations. Mm-hmm. What we're really seeing is it's financial struggle and frustration.
Yeah. I think I've have a few medical clients in the medical field, and as you know, my entire family works in the medical field. So sometimes when, I speak to them, they're like, oh, you couldn't possibly understand. Medicine is different. And I'm like, I've worked with medical clients, right? Usually when you're seeing difficulty in your revenue, operations is the first place to go. Because what is operations, right? It's looking at your cost ratio to output, and are you efficiently producing, right? So whether we're talking about supply chain or we're talking about a medical team and how they're delivering for clients in an efficient, high touch way, but that's profitable to the business, that's operations. So there's a lot that can be done there.
Yeah, and I think that either we fall into the trap of doing it the way it's always been done.
Right.
Or we think that it's impossible to have great profit from an excellent product.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, I think I've seen that happen in the medical field more and more, where I think what you guys struggle with is there's this rush to the next patient for profit, and there's the world of I have to check off all the boxes on insurance forms, and that takes time, and so it's hard to deliver a great experience.
Yes.
That's what I've noticed in my medical field clients, and there are ways to work around that to create systems and support your team. It's really, that's when it comes to supporting your team, which is something you're really good at.
Oh, well, thank you. But I think it is a challenge that many of us have in terms of hiring, finding the right team members, and then maintaining that culture of support within your team. And so is that something that you also help your clients with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love systems, right? But I think it gets misconstrued sometimes why I love systems, because I am kind of a systems geek. Okay, I am a systems nerd. But it's not that I love the system in itself so much as that I love what result the system gives you. So for example, what you just mentioned, hiring. I really believe in following a hiring system. Now, there are HR people that are expert in this, right? But what goes wrong when hiring team, for example? It's because you most likely were hiring in a rush, under stress. You go through the process quickly, and then what do you want to do? Tell me what it is you want to do when you find someone.
Put them to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? So if you had a system, like for example, I built a hiring system. So I know it's so tempting to say that person sounds good enough, and we are also stressed and overworked, and we need to bring them in and we need to put them into work. But if you follow a system of, let's just make sure we've made them go through this many interviews, and let's make sure there's a culture fit, and let's make sure they understand our values and what we're really doing here and what the bigger picture is, and that they're aligned with that, right? Let's like do some extra. I mean, do you know how many times Google interviews someone before they're hired?
No.
A minimum of 10.
You know, this is such an interesting point right now, Celia, because I think in the marketplace currently, post-COVID, there's a big fear, at least in the dental world, of if I don't hire this person right now, she's going to take the job down the street.
Yeah.
That's
not just in the dental world. I will say that's
yeah.
like all my clients across the board.
Yeah, so I think that urgency has actually gotten worse.
It's gotten worse. Yeah. And so you need a system so that you respect the system, because what the system will ultimately do, I always say systems will set you free. Right? So that's why I'm not like in love with the system itself. I want freedom. So the system is the key to your freedom.
That's so incredible. I just have to pause you there, because that's a big word for many of my listeners, is finding freedom.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I say that like, and people are like, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? It's the cycle of how a system works and what it does. Like, everything is a system. Did you ever train in any art form or sport?
Yes.
Okay. Give me an example of what you trained in.
So let's talk about rowing.
Okay. What was the very first thing you learned?
Oh, that was a while ago. What was the first thing I learned about rowing? The parts of the boat.
Okay. Nothing to do with like actually getting in and rowing.
No.
Right? So you have to learn all these of the sport or the art form. You have to learn all the tools, the skills. You have to understand the mechanism, right? And one day you're in that boat and you're rowing and you're just like, this is amazing. I feel so much freedom, right? But I always say that you had to go through that process of learning. Yeah. You had to learn the ABCs. Ballet dancers have to learn to do tendus, which seem like a pointless movement, but it's a movement that leads to everything. So that's how I see systems. They're just a vehicle for your freedom. And when you try to skip the steps or pass over a system, you hire the wrong person, or you hire a person who's bound to leave for that other office anyway, for whatever silly reason. You trained a person and then they leave. That's the worst.
Yep. Right?
That's like everyone's fear of my medical clients. So the system is really there to ensure your success. So a hiring system looks like checking all the boxes, doing several interviews, talking about their career goals, their life goals. What do they like to do? What kind of person they are? What are their values? Does your business have values? Do they align with your values? All of those things. And then a training system. And this is the one everyone wants to skip. Even my clients who are hiring a simple VA, they want to just throw work at them.
Yeah.
They're like, great, they're a VA, they're trained in some basic skills. I'm going to throw a pile of papers at them and hope for the best.
Yep.
And then everyone, you've probably heard this, everyone has horror stories of a VA. A VA is a virtual assistant. So it can be a personal assistant, an executive assistant. Everyone has horror stories of how hard it is to find an assistant. Did you take the time to train them? No, because you wanted to rush in and getting the work off your plate, which I totally understand 1000%. But if you take the time to train them, right, step by step, then they become a great VA. And it's the same for hiring. And so those are the kind of systems that I actually help my clients build. Like if they're in a hiring process, we build out SOP, which is a standard operating procedure for hiring. Okay, what is this role? What are they in charge of? What's their role scorecard? How are we going to score them? Are they aware of how they're going to be scored? When they have one-on-ones, we show it to them. Then they get trained for the things that they're responsible for. And we create a training plan.
Wow.
So then that person is more likely to succeed. And also, here's an interesting thing. McKinsey, I think several years ago, did a study on, they were interviewing employees and asked them what was the thing that most stressed them out at their job. And 80% of people said this was the thing that most stressed them out.
Poor training. Poor support.
Not knowing what they're supposed to be doing.
Wow, even simpler. Wow. Not being clear
Not
on
being
what
clear,
they're supposed to do.
Like, I'm not clear of my boss's expectations of me, and that causes stress and anxiety, and I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's crazy town.
Yeah.
Right? 80% of people, that's what stresses them out at work. So what I do is like, let's set them up to win from the beginning. When I hire someone, I have a team of 3 right now. And I'm a fractional COO sometimes for clients, and I've hired a client's team. The very first thing I do on day 1, for example, is I teach them what my core values are. It's like, well, okay, why? Why is that important? That's so fluffy. It's not fluffy because my core values tell you what I expect of you. Right? So, for example, one of my core values is never make assumptions. Cool, fluffy words, that's nice. No, there's nothing fluffy about it. What that means is when you're working for me, that means you have a question, you ask the question. You don't guess, you don't assume, you don't just try to get the task done because you want it to be done. You send me a note or call me or Slack me and you ask the question. Because I'm not annoyed by that, because I would rather you do it right the first time than turn something in and I have to spend my time correcting it, giving you feedback, giving you instructions again. That's more frustrating to me. So it's really good for me on day 1 to be like, wherever you came from, a lot of people in the startup world have a core value that is move fast and break things.
Yes.
That's kind of a known core value of the startup world. And I'm like, cool. That's not going to fly here. And it's not that that one's right or wrong. It's just I noticed, it drives me crazy when people just do something fast and sloppy to check off the box and they didn't think about it or really read the email or really, I would rather you be thoughtful and think through an exercise or a task. And if you don't know, I would rather you ask. So for example, I have a team of VAs who are all overseas and come from cultures that they tend to not be outspoken and not ask, and they all know to ask.
Interesting.
And so people are like, how do you get them, how have you gotten your team to be so chatty with you and interact? And like, because I told them from day 1, this is what I expect of you. My core values are not something that's on the wall that's pretty. This is the behavior I expect.
It reminds me of that quote from Brene Brown, kind is clear and clear is kind. Being very clear on your expectations is so important because it also creates a sense of safety and security as an employee, recognizing what's expected of me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Isn't it kind of just a stress relief to go, I know what I'm coming into today?
Yeah.
So what's fun about systems and operations and why I love operations so much, and I know that sounds like boring to tears. But the reason I love operations is because operations, when you think this way, does this for every department, for everything you're actually doing, right? Even marketing requires its systems and operations. Sales, you need a sales system and process and operations, right, for it to function. If not, you kind of have all these things that are great ideas.
Yeah.
But you don't have processes and systems for them to be acted out. So what we just gave an example of one system that you could build at a time where people are struggling with hiring and retaining, right?
Yes.
So number one, set them up to win. Set clear expectations from interview number one.
The other nice thing that I'm realizing as you're saying this is another additional benefit is it clears up time for you, because once it's created once, you can just follow the algorithm again, and you don't have to keep reinventing the wheel.
Yes. It's funny because no one wants to take the time to create an SOP or to create a system for something. But I'm like, I know, you think it's going to take you so much time, but it's actually saving you so much time. Well, it's saving you heartache. Absolutely. And then you get to repeat the system.
Well, it's interesting because in the medical and dental world, standard operating procedures are not foreign to us.
Right.
I mean, it's how we thrive.
You have regulations, you have to have them.
Yes. I mean, even taking notes in a chart has a standard operating, we call them SOP notes, but they're standard operating order of operations in your charts, which help you not miss things. I mean, even when we're reading x-rays, we have a standard way of reading an x-ray so that we don't miss it. It's so interesting to me that we don't do this in business, or at least it's commonly not done in terms of hiring and marketing. God.
No, I mean, you were asking me earlier, what do you think is the most common mistake that you see? And it's that. Is that even if you know what a SOP is, some people call them SOPs, I don't know, because you're a small business, you don't think you need them.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I see. Here's where it's fascinating. We all know this because now there's been many books written about this. The grandfather of productivity, David Allen, wrote a book called Getting Things Done. And then there's the book Atomic Habits. It's really popular now, which is an amalgamation of all these like grandfathers of this thinking, right? But the premise of all these books is that your brain wasn't meant to be used like a computer processor that holds everything in and processes everything.
And we do.
And when you're trying to do that, it actually creates stress and anxiety. So you probably see this in your world where everybody's running around stressed and anxious because they're trying to hold all these processes and procedures and SOPs, even though they don't realize that's what they're holding. They're trying to hold in all this information and feedback to this person and managing this person and bills and cash flow and operating expenses and whatever. They're trying to hold that all in. And what a lot of these, books have said now, which is just science, is that your brain doesn't function well that way. It's not optimized that way. So all we're talking about is that even if you have a small business, and what I mean by small business is your multi-six-figure, or I see this in my 7-figure earners, my multi-7-figure earners, they still haven't built systems. And even if you're just starting out and you're a 5-figure business, you think because you're really talented and you're really smart, because by the way, if you're an entrepreneur, you're probably really talented and really smart, and you're audacious and you're probably a badass and you're probably a little cocky. So put that all together, right? That's entrepreneur soup right there, right? And you think you don't need to write things down. You think you don't need to build a process. You think you don't really need a system for that. You think you don't really need to look at your numbers because you kind of know your numbers. You kind of know what you did last month and what you did this month. And what happens is you start growing. You start adding clients to that mix. You start adding some team members to that mix. And it starts to get out of control.
Yes.
And you can no longer, no matter how smart and how brilliant and how many hours a day you can work, my friends, it starts to get out of your hands. And then we see stagnation, revenue plateau, or absolute burnout
Yep.
or revenue decline or unhappy customers. And we're like, why? Because I'm so great. My product is so great. I'm so smart. My team is pretty smart.
I thought I was really nice.
I thought I was really nice. I thought that person really liked me. Right? And it's because you're still trying to hold it all in your brain, in a sense, if you don't build out systems and SOPs. And even if you have given verbal cues to a team member, this is the other big thing I see. Ooh, this one. This is like the one. This is the one where I'm like, why? Why do you think that? We think that a team member or a hire is going to treat the business the way we treat our business.
Yes, Celia. Yes. This is what I hear so many times from my clients as well. And I think it's so wounding.
Yeah.
When we've taken on our team members as our quote unquote family. So we've established a certain expectation that they value what we value. And that's so painful when that doesn't prove true. So please speak to that.
Well, I think what we need to do is remember that you are the entrepreneur or business owner here. You have way more skin in the game. And I would say, like, have you ever been an employee?
Me personally?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you remember what that was like?
Yes.
What did you want to do at the end of the day?
Go home.
And do what?
Not work.
Not think about work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's human.
Yeah.
And so this expectation that we put on our team because we're the entrepreneur and we don't mind working 24 hours a day on our business because it's our baby.
Yeah.
It's not their baby. They have babies at home.
Yeah.
Right? And so that unspoken expectation that we put on them only creates heartache on our part, disappointment and disillusionment on us, and only hurts us in the end and confuses them because they feel your frustration and they're probably like, I don't know why she's so upset. I did the same thing today that I did yesterday. And that is like the number one thing I see a lot of my clients do when they get so frustrated with their team. And I'm always like, did you think they were going to behave like the owner of the business?
Yeah, it's such a great point. And I think it's such a pain point as well for so many people in healthcare because that passion that you have for your business, for your baby, is not shared by your whole team.
So I also want to say there's a solution to that.
Ooh.
Right? Let's not just like, well, as fun as it is to talk about the pain, let's not stay in the pain. The solution is, right, what is their life like?
What are their values?
What are their values? What do they want? Right? So rather than putting some unspoken expectation for them to show up like me, I actually need to sometimes put myself in their position and understand what their life is like, what their day is like, why they chose to be an employee and not an entrepreneur, because they're two very different things.
Absolutely.
So the more I actually understand how they think, the more I understand what they need from me to perform. Do you see what I mean?
Absolutely.
I have to actually think about them and look at the world a little bit from their perspective and go, oh, got it. So I know everyone on my team, I know what motivates them. Each one is different. One has a dog and she loves her dog. So we talk about her dog and I check in on how her dog is doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's important to her and she cares about that. One really loves praise on group calls. I actually try to praise all of them and give them shout outs for everything that they're doing. But I think about what does this person actually need from me as a leader to understand me, to understand my expectations? How do they need me to give them notes? I love to make Loom videos, like, because the thought of sometimes typing everything out and instructions and explaining myself in typing. So I like to make Loom videos, but I have one developer who is like old school SaaS developer thinker. And he's like, I love your Loom videos for context, but that's not how I receive instructions. So for him, I have to put everything in like a ticket in our project management tool because he is a SaaS developer. And he's like, your Loom videos are nice. They're nice filler, but it still is not clear to me like what the task is. Whereas everybody else on my team loves the Loom videos because they get the sense of what I'm, So for him, I don't give him Loom videos.
So I can just feel from my audience some of the resistance to some of what you're saying. Number one, time. So we talked a little bit about time. So you're saying you work with a lot of entrepreneurs who already have an established business. Their ball is rolling, so they're already cruising along. We see a lot of, as you mentioned, burnout, overwhelm, anxiety in the dental profession. How do you even wrap your head around all the time this is going to take in terms of creating standard operating procedures, creating time for those 10 interviews to hire one person, time to...
Don't do 10 interviews. Yeah. That was...
I was exaggerating.
True story, but you're not Google, so don't do that.
But, even in terms of getting to know what every team member on your team likes and how they speak and their love language and how they need to receive validation and feel valued on the team, that feels overwhelming when you're seeing X number of patients a day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think... Well, okay. First, it depends on the size of your business, right? I am a strategist and I don't believe in one size fits all answers. So, of course, a team that's 2 to 5 people versus a team that's 10 to 20 is going to look different. When you're above, in my opinion, in my experience, when you're above 10 people, you need a manager or an ops manager or a really people person type of manager.
So really interesting point here, because believe it or not, I think that's a big aha moment for people in at least the dental field as well, because as you mentioned, just as much as we think we can hold everything in our brains, we think we can manage everything in our office too.
Oh, Lord, no.
If you're listening to this podcast, chances are you didn't get into business to be miserable. The problem is that people feel that if their business gets busier, if they start becoming more successful, that happiness will eventually set in. But it can actually get worse. This is why I created the Business of Happiness Prosperity Coaching. In this one-on-one coaching, we look at how to redefine success on your terms and re-find the joy and the passion in your dream. Visit me at thebizofhappiness.com and become the happiest business owner you know.
The rule of thumb is that you should, as the CEO, founder, visionary, you guys aren't going to like this. I apologize now. You should manage a max of 5 direct reports.
Interesting. Yeah, great.
Max. And here's the thing. I don't know about your industry, but a lot of times, because the founder, CEO, visionary is thinking ahead and thinking of bigger things and the next thing I want to do, and that's what they should be doing, they end up, I don't want to be stereotypical, but they end up not being great at people management.
Absolutely. Because
they lose patience quickly and they get frustrated.
Absolutely.
So when you have a growing team, and you come to me and say, now I'm going to give you pushback because I don't have time to train my team in this way, and I'm actually not even that good at it. You're right. You shouldn't be doing it. That's the real answer. Now, if you have a small, hire an ops manager, hire a people manager, hire a temporary fractional COO to build it out for you. There are fractional COOs that come in for a period of time and build this out for you and analyze your processes and build them out, and then they duck out and put somebody in charge. There are so many options. We get so stuck in I don't have enough time to do all that.
Yeah.
Cool. I have 10 rebuttals to that. Right? Because have enough time is just an excuse. It's one of our stories that we tell ourselves to not change and not look at our own shit.
Absolutely.
Right? Cool. I can come up with 10 ways to answer that I don't have time. So it depends on the size of your team. I want to be respectful. There's variables here. But if you have a small team, I would say you do have time if investing in your team today means creating out systems that then get repeated and automated and are things you never have to worry about again. Because trust me, there are things in my business and in my client's business I don't even look at anymore.
And that feels like freedom, I think. And
that is the definition of freedom,
absolutely.
Right? Things running on automation. One of this clients of mine has a media company, a podcast, a YouTube channel, a private community, and he and I, neither one of us any longer do any of the, you know this because you have a podcast. We don't do any of the uploading, any of the show notes, all the linking bits and bot. We don't do any of that anymore.
Perfect.
Right? So there's a lot of freedom. It frees him up to do the next big thing. This can be done in really any business.
Yeah.
I mean, I come from the fashion industry, so I come from when people are like, yeah, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I worked in complex supply chain issues for like 13 years of my life. Yeah, 13 years, 14 years. So, you know, it can be done in any business. But the time one is that's a fun one.
It's a fun limiting.
That's a fun limiting belief. Yeah. Because there's so many ways to solve for that. I don't have time.
What do you find are the top limiting beliefs that you come across with CEOs and entrepreneurs who are struggling?
I think time is a really big one for sure. And my favorite is I don't know how. That's my favorite. Because I'm a strategist, so I literally lay out the how. So I like to say, I just gave you the how. I laid it out for you. I just told you exactly what you have to do and on this timeline. So you better come up with a better answer. I'm like, come up with something better because I just gave you the how.
What do you think it is that's behind that? What is it that's...
Well, that's when it gets fun because it's like, oh, cool. I just literally laid out the how for you. So what is that really?
Yeah.
And then we get into what that is really. And a lot of times it's just the story and the mindset that this person's actually dealing with. So I don't know how can be a manifestation of I'm not worthy, I'm not enough, I can't actually succeed, I can't do things differently.
What will people think of me?
What will people
Judgment.
think of me because I do it differently or because I've grown? Because plateau usually means you're also hit a spot you're kind of comfortable at. So if we're actually going to grow past the plateau, we're going to get real uncomfortable. Yeah. Because we're going to build a business that's a machine to get past that plateau. But you also are going to have to work through, who am I of a 7-figure business? Who am I when I run an 8-figure business? Oh, what does that say about me? Who am I? Who do I have to be as the leader to run an 8-figure business? Yeah. Because it's a very different role. So I don't know how is my favorite because it's always like, ooh, we get to go fishing. Let's figure out what that I don't know how actually mean. Like, what are we actually saying? What limiting belief are we referring to? And then we get to play there. The reason I even got into mindset coaching is because I've been doing operations work and strategy for a really long time. And I used to be a head coach at a coaching company. And there's just a certain point in everyone's journey, and it hits around the same time for most people. But there comes a week where the person just like shuts down. Right? You've been building out this strategy. You're moving them on the strategy. You have the whole plan in place. You see the road ahead. You see who they are. You see who they're becoming. You want that 7-figure business? All right. We've built the like runway for it. And there is a day on that journey where the person just shuts down, and it kept happening. And I was like, okay, I need skills for that, because the strategy, I would think the strategy is like all you need. Like, I just gave it to you. Take it and run. And then you use the data and you use metrics to measure your efforts and to measure what's working and what's not working. And hey, what's not working? No big deal. You pivot, you try something else, but people fall apart. And so I was like, oh, this is mindset. This is the real journey, right? This is the real journey of entrepreneurship. And if I don't actually have tools to address it, I don't think it's healthy when someone's actually having a mindset moment or breakdown or catharsis. I don't think it's healthy to just try to get them to push through, which is what a lot of business coaches do.
Absolutely.
They will just be like, they will convince you and talk you into and push through. And I actually think that you're dealing with deeper wiring of who that person is. And as we know, because of our training, pushing through doesn't actually heal whatever it is they're really working on.
And it's really interesting, especially if that is a value that you've held in yourself, that you are very good at pushing through. You know, that I think becomes a badge of honor that we wear, in terms of, I can just get through anything and I can just show up and keep grinding. And so that's even another challenging thing to do with clients, to have them recognize and acknowledge that you need to take some time to work through this.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that, because I come from a push through background.
Culture. Yeah.
I'm trained as a professional dancer. I am an immigrant to this country. I was raised by immigrants who were really hardworking. And I started my first business when I was 24 in South America by myself.
Wow.
So like, push through is all I know and all my training. So when I was coaching people on strategy, I would even get like, I don't understand why this guy's just not doing the thing.
Not just pushing through.
Why isn't he pushing through?
Yeah.
Like, why are we having the same conversation we had last week? Like, what's going on here? And so I recognized, I also have a master's in theology because I think people are so fascinating. So I knew, I was like, oh, there's something deeper going on here. And I understood, and I could recognize there's something in the deeper beliefs that this person is operating off of, that aren't helping him or she move forward, right? But I didn't have the tools to guide them through that space, the mindset space, the systems of you is what I call it, right? And I thought it would be irresponsible of me to not have the tools to walk somebody through that, and to just say, well, I can push through, so why can't you? I was trained to push through, and I don't always think that's the healthiest thing. So, but that was what was like a really interesting pivoting point for me as a coach and business consultant, is that everyone has mindset stuff.
I know. Everyone has mindset stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fun, actually, to discover and uncover.
It is fun. And that's why I say, for me, what's really fun, and where like all my weird things come together, for me, entrepreneurship is a spiritual journey.
Love that.
Whether you know it or not.
Love that.
Whether you like it or not. Because you will be faced with you. Every time something comes up, data's wrong, numbers aren't looking good, somebody just quit who I thought was a great team member, this person's whatever, this client's unhappy, like, you will constantly be facing yourself in all of these challenges. And that is literally the definition of a spiritual journey. So it's like all my worlds kind of collide when I realized, oh, this is why I didn't become a pastor. It's because I'm actually already pastoring people. Pastoring just means to walk alongside someone. That's
very cool.
Actually all it means.
That's neat.
We get it wrong because we see people on pulpits and
Yeah.
we think it's, but like what it actually means is to walk next to somebody on their journey.
So cool.
So that's why I think entrepreneurship and mindset is so the relationship is so fascinating. Because if you've chosen to be a business owner, and you know this because you've done this, every little thing that happens is an opportunity for you to look at yourself and look at the role that you played.
Well, I love that perspective too, because I think sometimes when it does hit so hard, when you do get a disappointment or a team member leaves or a patient is unhappy or a system falls apart or something just doesn't work anymore, we take it on as a definition of our value. It's so painful to feel that. But I love the idea of looking at it as a spiritual journey and just an opportunity for reflection and growth, and not an indication of your worth.
Right. Because in that moment you get to go, is this the definition of my value? Yeah. Is this moment how I'm going to define my worth or not? And that is like the journey.
Yeah.
Really.
And have I maybe been attaching my worth to this outcome?
Yeah.
All along. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure in your industry it must be really hard because you probably want everyone to like you.
Oh, absolutely.
Like team and clients.
And we know that's impossible. Everyone can't like you.
Yeah.
But it's
such a hard lesson. It's a hard one.
Oh, it's so hard. A friend of mine says, we're not pizza. Not everyone's going to like you, which I think is great because
it is great.
It's true.
I actually met somebody the other day who doesn't like pizza, and I was like, what? Is that even a thing? I was shocked.
So what challenges have you faced in your entrepreneurial journey? What mirrors has that brought to you?
Oh my God.
Or give us a really juicy one. Because as you said, you've probably had many mirrors, as if you're looking at this as a spiritual journey.
Well, when I was younger, I mean, I love that I started a business when I was so young. It's so dumb, bold and dumb.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. I made every single mistake possible, including not listening to my mentor who knew things, but I thought I knew better. So I had to learn things the hard way. I had to learn about numbers and looking at numbers and looking at data because I was a creative, so that was hard. I would say today, what's hardest for me is taking my own medicine. Because I too think I'm so smart. I'm so capable. Yeah. I can work 14-hour days. Like it ain't no thing. I do all this that I help people do. So even recently, like for example, I have a pretty extensive audit form when you come to work with me as a client, because it really tells, like I have a methodology. I have a framework that I've built that's proprietary. There's 10 pillars of business so that you can get a score out of 100, because we all understand that scoring system. And you do a pretty extensive audit. And I recently updated the audit to be even more extensive so that I really get exactly what's going on in this person's business in every pillar. And then I was like, as I was redoing the audit, I was like, ooh, I have to take this for myself.
Yeah.
And I have to answer these areas honestly. And there are things that I don't have in place because I have such a solid team, because I spent a lot of time in the beginning training my team. I'm going to admit this, and don't judge me. Don't judge me. It's like, what is it? The cobbler's children have no shoes thing.
Exactly.
I have a really solid team, and I've done a really, I think, focused job on training them. They don't have scorecards, which is like something I make all my clients have with their team. Right. So because I talk to them so much on the daily, and we have a weekly team meeting, and I have a one-on-one with each of them on separate days, I don't actually have a monthly scorecard review. My bad. So as I was going through this audit, I was like, I score bad in this. Yeah. But so what I'm working on myself is like, I've created this whole framework. It's beautiful. It's intense. You've seen it. It took me years and years of thinking and months to build it. and I have this whole beautiful intake form that feeds into it. So now I'm kind of forcing myself to take take the spoonful of medicine and do it for myself, and even put my scores on there and have a folder for myself and treat my business like I would to any of my clients.
And benefit from your expertise.
And benefit from it. And also, because I think it's important when you coach people to also know what it feels like. Right?
Absolutely.
It's like our mentor Tracy says in one of the trainings, like, you wouldn't go to a dentist with no 2 front teeth.
Yeah.
Right? Do you remember when she used that?
Absolutely, yeah.
You wouldn't go to a mindset coach who isn't doing the mindset work.
Right.
And so I had this moment where I was like, oh, well, then I also need to put my business through the same rigors and give my business a score. And luckily, I have a system that does it. So I'm not putting any bias on the score.
Oh, yes.
Because the score kind of pumps out based on how I built it. So I can't fib.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of putting myself through that and seeing the goal of business. One of the reasons why you get overwhelmed and you feel like you're always on the edge of burnout is because you're trying to work on all 10 pillars at the same time.
Yes.
Okay. So even if you know the pillars are there or you don't know the pillars are there, it doesn't matter. Yeah. You're trying to work on numbers, marketing, sales, customer journey, fulfillment, retention, team, systems, my time. Like you're trying to work on all these areas all at the same time.
Or you're just throwing darts at the board and saying,
today
I'm going to do this.
Right.
And it's very unfulfilling and scary. Because
that must be
it doesn't
very scary.
work. Yeah.
So the system that I've built shows you where you need to focus next based on order of importance and where you scored the lowest. So I'm also trying to put myself through that same experience of like, I'd love to be on Instagram today, scrolling through Instagram and making content, but that's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now on my business. So
you're supposed to be making scorecards.
I'm supposed to be making scorecards so that I, walk my talk, as they say.
I love it. Walk my talk.
Yeah.
So I think this is incredible. And I think this whole concept is actually very new, even though you might not realize it. I know it's what you swim in, but I think there's a lot of what you mentioned here today, which is going to be light bulb moments for many of our listeners. If anybody wanted to find out more about you and learn more about what you teach and what you preach, because you do an amazing Instagram live on Tuesdays.
I do.
Where I actually have learned so much from. So how can we find you?
So even though I'm supposed to not be scrolling on Instagram, you can find me on Instagram at I am Don Celia. Yes, it's meant to be funny. Because people in my life call me the Don.
I love it.
They always come to me for advice, for business advice.
Okay, so how do you spell it?
I am DONCELIA. And you can also take a free version of my quiz, it's a shortened version of my extensive intake form, so you can understand how you are scoring in these areas of business. It's called the Scalable Is Your Business Scalable? It's the Scalable Business Quiz. It's quiz.celiaarias.com.
And we'll put it in the show notes. So if you're driving, don't worry. We got you.
But it's a fun one. It's a shorter version, but it will actually show you how you're scoring in each of the pillars.
Love it.
A gentler version of my bigger quiz, let's say.
Really cool. Really cool. Yeah. And also remind us that we don't have to know everything just because we're in business or owning a business, that there's opportunity for looking for help and for support.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I have yet to meet someone that knows everything. Have you?
Great point.
But
we put that pressure on ourselves.
We do. It's the entrepreneur journey. I tell you, I'm supposed to know. I'm supposed to know what to do next, and I'm supposed to know what turn to take, and I'm supposed to be a great leader, and I'm supposed to always be on, and I'm supposed,
Yes,
we do that. But yeah, I would say I have some clients who are in 7 figures, who are multi-7 figures. I know of businesses who my mentors have mentors.
Yeah.
right? Our coach has a coach.
Yes.
So I do think it's sad when business owners kind of hunker down and think they have to know everything and do everything themselves. Because, guys, Tony Robbins has a coach.
Yeah.
Right? Like some of the big entrepreneurs that we look up to and think they know everything, like these people that have written these books, like they have mentors that they pay a lot of money for.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not even about I didn't know, it's that you need someone else to reflect to you what
Absolutely.
you're not seeing and what you're missing or what you're just avoiding, because we as humans love to avoid pain. So trust me, the greats have coaches or mentors, and so it's totally okay. I have one.
I have several.
Yeah, my mentors have them. Like my mentor, he's like, multi 8-figure earner, and I know that he has it, like, and it's like, okay, wow, all right, so it's okay, it's okay.
So, in all of this, and in this entrepreneurial journey, which I know is so close to your heart, which is one of the reasons why I love you, because there's that shared passion for what we do and for our babies that are our businesses. What is your definition of happiness?
Oh man, I should have known. I should have been prepared for this question. Duh. I would say my definition of happiness is getting to be completely yourself in what you do. So getting to bring your full self and essence and goofiness or seriousness and your gifts that you were given in this life, and getting to bring that into your passion, that is like, my dream state.
Yeah, that's pretty beautiful.
That, like, if you get to bring what you were gifted with in this life to the thing that you're passionate about, and it grows and it works, like, what is better?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I don't know. I'm sure people have given you amazing answers, but I'm a little bit of a
I love
productivity nerd. So.
I love that answer because I think it's an answer that so many of us are looking for other people to speak. Like, I think it's something we feel as entrepreneurs, and we're almost afraid to say that. But yes, that is such a beautiful definition of happiness. Yeah.
Right? Like, I teach people about numbers and profitability and operations, and people are like, you don't look or act like an ops girl. I'm like, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, there was a point where I was like, this is fun. So let's make it fun.
Yeah.
Let's talk about profitability and make it fun. Let's talk about efficiencies and systems and how do we make it funny? Because you know what I mean?
Totally.
Like, I want to be myself all day.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like goofy with my clients. I will say whatever needs to be said to get them to like, it's like Tony Robbins says that he'll sometimes drop an F-bomb just to get someone's system to like wake up. Right. But for me, it's like, I just want to show up completely as myself and not pretend, and trust that my bringing my years of skills to a job and my goofy personality is exactly what that person needs.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me here in this hotel room on the Mobile Business of Happiness podcast.
This is wild.
Yeah, we did a good job here.
You did an amazing job.
Thank you. You guys, if anyone's listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you'll have to check out the YouTube version to see us sitting here in this fabulous hotel room.
This is impressive. I'm gonna share this with my podcasting client.
Awesome.
He's gonna be like, "What?"
We don't stop. Well, thank you, and thank you for all that you do, and thank you for the message that you've brought for our audience tonight. I'm so
You're
grateful
very
to
welcome.
You. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's always funny to me when you say, "This is kind of a new message," or people haven't heard it this way. I'm like, "What? Really?" Okay. Because to me, the things that are like what you swim in are so obvious.
I hear you. Yes.
You know?
Yeah. And so it's really nice to be able to see that through another perspective.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you to all of you for joining us here and on this episode. And if this episode has sparked a new curiosity in you, then I encourage you to please check out Celia and find her online, and you'll be able to find all her links in the show notes. And if this has awakened a new possibility or a new perspective for you, please share it with a friend who you can uplift their day as well. And until next time, remember that when you feel good, that is when you can do good. Bye-bye.
Yeah.